So for the presentation today, we're going to be covering a few things. So we'll start off with who is Amidata, then we'll move on to how we started our journey with Alibaba Cloud. We'll then cover off some of the services that we've built with Alibaba Cloud, how we partner for success, where we're heading, some of our direction, then we'll finish off with some Q&A at the end of the session. So feel free to write down questions and send them through as we go along. We'll try to answer as many of those as we get towards the end of the presentation. So first off, who is Amidata? So Amidata is a managed service provider. We were established in 2010, and basically our go-to-market is focusing around a few areas. So we focus around availability, so making sure data is available, recoverable, efficiency, so services such as monitoring and of networks and applications to make sure that they're running as effectively as possible, and protection, so making sure that users have access to it and unauthorized users don't have access to your systems. And underpinning that, we have a number of backup services, network solutions, and infrastructure services. And as you can see, we have a broad range of customers. So we have customers from large enterprise customers such as CUB, financial services customers like the Eclipse Group, accounting companies like KPMG, through to government accounts, universities. And we also play in the retail sector as well. So we have customers such as Bardo and Smeg on board as some of our customers. So how did we start our journey? So I joined Amidata about 18 months ago, and when I joined the organisation, one of the things I wanted to look at is what are the services we have today, where are the gaps, and where do we need to build out some of these services? And when I reviewed the business, we reviewed who we had in our ecosystem and where these gaps are. And one of the things I really identified early on in the piece is that we needed to have a cloud partner on board that can give us that ability to deliver hybrid cloud solutions and pure play cloud solutions as well. So when I looked at the landscape of who's in the market, who's been around, such as the Amazons and the Googles and what have you, in doing my research, I actually discovered that Alibaba Cloud had established operations in Australia, which kind of made me quite curious. And that's when I actually reached out to the team at Alibaba Cloud, to Tim, to actually talk a little bit more about what Alibaba's doing and where they're heading. And what I found really interesting about Alibaba Cloud is here's a player that's new to the market but has a really rich feature set in the homeland of China, and they were looking to take that to the world. So really, I saw it as a point of difference in terms of what we can build as a business to take out to our customers. And that really reinforced, I think, why I wanted to work with Alibaba, and during that process, why we should partner with them. And I know at the same time there was also some interest from Alibaba around Amidata as a solution provider as well. So Tim, do you just want to cover?
Yeah, so I mean, it was actually quite timely when Jason and I initially spoke. I mean, we initially started the business. We obviously have a scalable public cloud platform, but working in the channel ecosystem, we found there were some gaps in terms of providing actual holistic solutions to customers that were simplified. So what we've been able to do with Amidata is to provide a full-blown solutions which are based on Alibaba infrastructure. So we're finding a lot of mileage in the market, especially in the SMB mid-sized market, who want a simple and reliable solution that's built on reliable infrastructure, but just to keep it simple, and from a financial standpoint, being able to bundle it with a trusted partner.
Thanks. And that's, I think, where we started off the journey was, just in the mutual, this is Amidata's expertise, this is what Alibaba has, and we spoke around where Alibaba's customers were looking to potentially take some services, and the first thing that actually came up was backup. So Tim actually said, well, look, we've kind of got this platform, but we're looking for a backup solution that we can take out jointly to go to market. And that was the formation of the first two services that we built as a partnership. So the first two services that we built was Amidata Online Protect and another service called Amidata 365Protect. And we'll cover those off in a few moments. But basically, we identified that there was a need for backup. We built these two services, and there's a joint partnership between Amidata, Alibaba Cloud, and Veeam. And basically, it's for customers that are looking to take a hybrid cloud approach to IT. They might have some on-prem equipment, but they want to back up to cloud, and that's what we built these services to deliver. So the first service that we pulled together was Amidata Online Protect. So what Online Protect is, it's a service that's been built to deliver an enterprise level of backup to the cloud at a low price point. So we built this service to come in at $55 US per terabyte per month, plus the software to deliver this service. It's built with Veeam and Alibaba Cloud. And where we see this service as being really perfect is for an organisation that wants to remove tape handling for business. So Amidata's history as a organisation that plays heavily in the backup as a service space, one of the things that we commonly find when we go out and talk to businesses is that we just don't want to handle tapes anymore. You know, the world's moved on. Let's just get away from it. And we're finding a lot of interest in the SMB space type organisations that want to move away from tape handling, but haven't found the right fit in terms of something that matches their budget. And you can see there on this slide that some of our clients include the likes of Bardot. So Bardot is a national retailer around Australia in the women's fashion space. Smeg, who are in the home appliances space, and RB Sellers, who are in the workwear space, casual workwear space around Australia. So we're finding that these types of services that we've been able to build with Alibaba are really addressing a market segment that have been looking for this type of solution. So what I might do from here is hand over to Malcolm Wren to actually go through in a bit more detail how we've actually architected this solution and the services that we use from Alibaba Cloud to make it happen and deliver it.
Nice. Thanks, Jason. It's a very simplistic methodology behind the backup process. We're able to use the ECS environment, NAS storage environment, and quickly build a Veeam platform to be able to take incoming data from clients into the cloud, and it's run extremely smoothly. The NAS storage enables us to upscale size as we need it. We started off with less than 5 terabytes. We're now well over 20 terabytes in one platform alone. And there's no impediment to that process. If we need more, it just adds on the fly. It's just seamless, extremely seamless, and very easy to use. I was quite impressed with how simple the process was. And I guess one thing I do like about the especially the ECS and the NAS, the way it works together, is just rock solid.
Mm. And I know working closely with Malcolm on building and testing these solutions and piloting them and taking them to market, there are probably two comments along the way that I think you sort of come up with every now and again. As one, which you just spoke about, is you're constantly remarking about the actual performance, whether it's processing capability or the speed of file transfers. The other thing that you've also commented on more recently is the Alibaba approach to security. Do you just want to touch on that? Because one of the things, obviously, when customers are moving into a cloud environment, is security is one of the questions that constantly comes up.
So when I first built the online Protect environment, had a discussion about best way to do security, and Alibaba's approach to that was, with their security group, was everything was just completely locked down. So the only way I'm going to make a mistake or introduce something that shouldn't be there is if I actually do it. It's not like you're given an environment with holes and security issues in it. It's solid, and it's just a matter of then attaching those components that you're using to that same security group. Then they all talk seamlessly together. It's quite good. I didn't have to worry about internal firewalls. The whole thing was done at the edge for me.
Excellent, thank you. So moving on to the next service that we built with Alibaba Cloud, it's a service called 365Protect. And again, we've built this service with Alibaba Cloud and Veeam, and this is addressing a different requirement that we are starting to see in the marketplace, which is some concerns organisations have with the security of their email records. Basically, the big shift in the marketplace is to move to more and more of email no longer residing within an on-premise environment, and they're now moving into a cloud-hosted environment. And what a lot of businesses weren't aware of when they made the shift from on-prem to cloud was that even though the service provider is responsible for the uptime of the service, they're not actually responsible for the backup and retention of the information. And from a business perspective, this exposes some risk insofar as that if an email is deleted and they can't restore that email and it has to do with a commercial matter or a HR matter, if they can't reproduce that record, it actually has some significant business risk attached to it. And we know, again, from our history of being heavily involved in the backup space, that organisations can incur some really significant costs if they're not able to recover their records timely and accurately. So the other service we built, 365Protect, is really around ensuring that Exchange type email is backed up away from the service provider's cloud storage into a separate environment, and that's using Veeam. And the way we've structured this particular service is we've structured it so it's protecting a mailbox on a subscription model of $2.65 US per mailbox per month. And as we did with the previous one, I'll hand over to Malcolm now just to talk about how this service has been built.
Thanks. So this service is very similar to the Online Protect. We're just using a slightly different version of the Veeam product, and we're able to back up complete mailboxes, OneDrive, SharePoint, and bring it into an ecosystem that's totally secure and gives you that ability and sense of well-being, so that you know that your data, while it's primarily residing somewhere else, you've got to back up in a totally different ecosystem. The process is extremely simple. It's just a matter of we're using ECS computing, we're using NAS storage again, just a totally different set of repositories, and again, there's no limit to that process. We can grow those repositories as we need, and they grow automatically. And restoration is extremely simple. There's two reasons for that. One being the Veeam product itself enables a few ways to restore. I mean, just last night I was restoring two 30 gig mailboxes back to one of the servers, and the client will go and grab those today and download them straight out of the Alibaba system. So, and they're quite happy with that. The request came in, and it's just straightforward.
Excellent. So moving along, so those two examples or two services, they were the kind of services that Amidata and Alibaba, cut our respective teeth on in terms of productising and taking to market. And having built up that expertise now, we're now able to get involved in some more, I'd say, complex or more technical solutions. And the case study we're going to talk about now is an example of taking those learnings and being able to take something else to market, which has been quite successful for us. So what I'm going to talk to you about now is a case study around Melbourne High School. So Melbourne High School is Melbourne's premier selective state school. So it runs from years 9 to 12, and students that go to Melbourne High School have to pass an entrance exam to be admitted into the school. Talking to Melbourne High School, they expressed an interest to look at how they deliver their media services and applications to their students. And talking to the IT team there, they basically said, well, look, we're looking to try and do things a little bit differently here. They have 80 students, they're running the Adobe suite of products, things such as InDesign and Illustrator, and they wanted to be able to deliver this thing in a flexible model using GPU compute capability. And talking through their requirements, they said, well, we pretty much discovered that, or uncovered, there were three different approaches they could take. Option one is to build a computer lab. Option two was to build a VDI server environment with GPU and farm that out. Or the third option was to build a cloud type environment to deliver this, this capability to the students. And going through the first two options with them, building a computer lab wasn't particularly appealing to Melbourne High School, because they'd have to, one, find room for it, and two, they'd have to constantly manage and maintain those systems over a 3 or 4 year period and keep refreshing them. Building a VDI server environment, again, had a fair bit of complexity and inherent cost to it. So they were really interested in looking at a cloud solution, because not only would it help reduce cost, but it would also give students the flexibility to be able to access the GPU capabilities from anywhere on their devices. So that was the most attractive option for them. So moving on, so after going through the requirements with Melbourne High School, we actually worked with Alibaba Cloud and the technical team were really excellent during the process in building out a POC. So we worked with Melbourne High School and tested that the Alibaba environment was capable of delivering the Windows images that were required to their students. The applications would run fine and the performance was all up to their standards. So basically, taking that POC, we've developed a proposal around building a cloud portal for the students to be able to log in and access their profile. They have the benefit of being able to access the capability both in class and at home. We're using the Alibaba API stack to be able to provision and deprovision, and unlike the earlier examples, this is where we're starting to now embrace the broader stack of Alibaba solutions. So for this solution, we're now using things such as Elastic Compute, Elastic GPU, Elastic IP, object storage and NAS storage to be able to deliver this solution. So what I'll do now is I'll hand over to Malcolm to actually walk through the process of how we actually deliver this capability to the students.
Thanks, Jason. So this was, for me, quite a challenging role to start with, because I've come from a space where traditionally I would deliver this sort of service with Citrix. We couldn't use a standard RDS farm due to the nature of the requirements from the high school, using Adobe InDesign, Illustrator, Photoshop. It's quite image intensive. Those protocols that remote desktop run just would not really cut it for them. So we started out, we built a Windows 10 image, uploaded it into Alibaba and started our proof of concept. I'd never actually worked with GPU computing before in that sense. So Alibaba team were really, really good, showed me how to set that and work in that environment. We had the client come in and do their full testing, and they were quite happy with the speed. They couldn't really notice a difference between what we were providing them in the proof of concept to what they were actually using on some of their existing Apple systems. So we then moved on from that process and decided that to go ahead and build the solution. Part of that requirement involved us introducing a Windows domain environment, mainly so that the high school could manage their internet security. Mm-hmm. So we couldn't just allow students to log on, and while they might be at school in their school networking environment, it's very closed from an internet perspective of what they can and can't introduce. So we couldn't give them open slather in the Alibaba environment. So by introducing a domain environment, they could then preload some of their software into that to give them the security that they wanted for their students. So we had to engage with another partner of Alibaba so that they could actually write a portal for us. We personally don't have the skill set to do that, so they introduced us to one of their partners, and they've rolled out a whole portal that enables students and staff to just on demand spin up a GPU instance of the Windows 10 machine on the fly as they need, from any location, from any time. As long as they've got an internet connection, they can do the work. Spinning up of the machines takes less than 30 seconds. It's extremely fast. So we had a bit of concern early on about the fact that what would happen if every student came into the class and spun up all at once. We're able to allay those fears due to the speed of the system itself. But also what it means is, because the client's paying on a per hour basis, the lecturer doesn't need to start all the machines half an hour before. They only really pay for what they use, and we've been able to give them a cost-effective solution by using this model from Alibaba. Because they only paying for what they actually use at that time. It keeps the cost down for them. There's a few upfront costs. They've had to buy some software, to be able to build solution themselves. But all in all, a much easier solution, I think, if we had gone down the Citrix path, because there's just not as many moving parts.
Mm. Oh, thank you. And I'll just sort of recap on something that you mentioned as well, and that was one of the things that also was a real point of difference between the Alibaba cloud solution and some of the other solutions they looked at with some of the other well-known cloud providers. Was Alibaba offered the flexibility of being able to deliver GPU compute on a granular dollars per second basis. So one of the comments from Melbourne High School was, how granular can your billing go down to? And basically the concern was that we've looked elsewhere and the granularity is down to dollars per hour. So if a student was to log in for 5 minutes, they're billed for the whole hour. With Alibaba, it really is a consumption of, you pay down to the second for what you use. So that was really one of the points of difference that allowed us to progress this opportunity further, because again, if we were in that, you log in for 3 minutes or 4 minutes and you get billed for the whole hour, it kind of throws the economics of this solution out the window.
Yeah, and just to add, one of the key requirements for the API portal was that they could then get some real-time reporting on minutes used, dollars expended over a week, over a month, per class, so they can track how much they spend throughout the semester and the year, so that they can keep within their budget requirements.
Yeah, and the other thing as well that came up as an unintended consequence of all of this as well is that the teachers can now actually see down to the student level how long they've actually been logged in for. So on one hand, there's always a concern that a student may log in for too long, but the other concern is a student may not log in at all. So now Melbourne High can sit there and go, hang on a sec, we know you're now 3-4 weeks into the semester or into the term and you've logged in for about 5 minutes. Are you serious or are you not really serious? So that was also one of the nice things that came out as a result of this piece of work. So moving on to why we won the business. So we've sort of talked about some of the things that helped us progress this sale along in terms of the partnership and in terms of technical engagement. But like a lot of decisions, and Melbourne High being in the education space and being a public school, is cost was also a big consideration to all of this. And the reason why we won was pretty simple, and you can see the numbers here, is that to build out a computer lab, you're looking at around $200,000 US up front to build the lab. And alongside of that, you've got to constantly maintain and keep processing the updates and what have you. Melbourne High also received a proposal built on the Azure stack, and this was pretty much a lift and shift of an on-prem VDI Citrix type environment into a cloud environment. And you can see there that that was around 60,000 US per year. So over 3 years, it's about the same as running a computer lab. So you kind of go, you know what, it's pretty neutral. The proposal we put forward to Melbourne High School is in the order of $30,000 US per year. So we've been able to really reduce the cost and deliver some added flexibility to the school. So we feel that these are the points of difference that won us the business, and working with Alibaba along the way, and bringing in the right partners to help us deliver that broader solution is really what helped us get over the line.
Yeah, and I think to that point, there's a genuine misconception in the market that if you're trying to be cheaper in the market, it's not necessarily Alibaba Cloud is cheaper across the board. It's some of our pricing mechanisms that gives us a cheaper billing model over our competitors. So if you're interested in looking at our cloud models, reach out and let us know.
No worries. And just to sort of wrap up the case study around Melbourne High, so alongside the economics of the proposal, we were able to deliver added flexibility to the solution by giving students a more mobile, accessible outcome as a result of it. And the last point I've already touched on, which is other cloud solutions relied on some really expensive software, whereas we've been able to really come up with a new generation way of delivering this outcome, which is using APIs and using the full stack of cloud tools to be able to deliver a really slick, efficient outcome. So moving on, so how we partner for success. So it's always interesting when you go into a new partnership with a vendor, such as Alibaba. Everyone goes into a new relationship with great expectations as to how things are going to work. But like any partnership, the really important thing is having a clear view as to what your goals are and what you want to work on together as an organisation. And along the way, Alibaba recognised that we needed some help, but they also recognised we could bring something to the table as well. So, they've really helped us along the journey in terms of giving us the resources and access to the right technical people, and the tools and the time to be able to build that level of expertise up now where we can actually go out to market and sort of identify opportunities and go, we think we can do something here that's a little bit different, and it no longer becomes a situation where price is price is the issue. It's really around how good or how neat the technical solution is. So we've been very clear around the goals up, and we sort of covered that off earlier. The other thing is the local sales engagement. So with Tim and the extended team in Melbourne and Sydney, that's also been really, really good. And also, I touched on prices and everything, or Tim touched on prices and everything, but there is also something about working with an organisation that is hungry and keen, as that we can look at it and go, well, this is what we need to do to win, and Alibaba have been really good with us in terms of going, okay, this is what you need, then we'll help you get to that point. So it's really been a great partnership that's been going now for about 18 months. So where we're heading. So I've sort of taken you through a bit of a journey as to where we started and where we're heading, and now having cut our teeth on a few products and services and building our capability up, we're looking to really build on the success that we've had. We're developing new services, or we're thinking of new services all the time now that we can look to build on the platform. And we're also working with the marketing team around building some case studies around the wins, so we can help get it out there and take this into other segments, because we look at it very much of, well, if this was a requirement one school had in Melbourne, then there are going to be other schools around the country and around the region that would potentially benefit from this sort of solution. So we're really looking forward to taking the work that we've done and really using it to grow and be successful in the marketplace, not by being cheaper, but by being better. Last but not least, learn more about Amidata. This is the URL to our website, amidata.com.au. Feel free to jump on board. We have live chat as an option. We have web forms as an option. So if you've heard anything that you've liked as we've spoken today, feel free to drop me a note, and we'll get back to you and we can answer some of those questions. With that, we're now over to Q&A.
Great. So thanks for joining us today, guys. We have about 6 live questions, which is great. The first is, how have you found service provisioning? That's probably for you, Malcolm.
Fantastic. It's no other way to describe it. I mean, I've been used to environments where I could wait 10 or 15 minutes to spin up and provision a server, for example.
Yep.
The typical Alibaba screen comes back, it'll be done, wait around 5 minutes. Generally, it's probably a minute and a half and the whole thing's done.
Awesome.
Very, very good. I'm actually quite pleased with the support that we do get. It's tremendous.
Okay. Second question is, what has been the biggest hurdle for both of you, I guess?
Look, I think probably the biggest hurdle that I've encountered going out and talking to the customers is actually, you say Alibaba Cloud, and they actually haven't heard of Alibaba Cloud. But I've also found that a double-edged sword, because on one hand, people go, well, we haven't heard of Alibaba Cloud, but everyone's heard of Alibaba. Yeah. So it immediately opens the discussion to, really? Okay, they're not only have they got a cloud service, but they have a cloud service and it's in Australia. And what we've found is that the market in Australia, Australians tend to have an appetite, and I think this speaks true for most people, have an appetite for wanting to know more. They kind of feel, well, look, if there's only 2 or 3 organisations delivering a service and there's a new player in the market who has the strength and credibility of Alibaba behind them, then we really want to know more. And we found that most organisations, when we talk to them, they know of Alibaba, they want to know more, but there's just that immediate apprehension of, well, who is Alibaba? But then when you start going into it a little bit further, it actually turns out to be a positive hurdle rather than a negative hurdle. Malcolm, is there?
I would say for myself, I found the portal a bit challenging to start with, but that's already been through 2 new iterations. Now it's extremely easy to use, and I find the support, I actually found it overwhelming. If I go and do a search for something, there's just so much comes back. It's incredible. I didn't expect it, but I basically initially was just really the portal that I wasn't used to, and it's just a matter of getting used to it.
Right.
Mm. And yeah, I was just going to reinforce Malcolm's comment. As a salesperson, not as a technical user, I shouldn't be unleashed onto tools such as a technical portal. But early on in the piece, I went into the technical portal, and it was, had a few rough edges. But when I went on recently to look up a couple of things, I was amazed as to how much development has taken place over the past year. And again, I think this is the kind of thing that we expect to see over the next year or two with Alibaba Cloud as it matures in the Western market, that some of these things will really develop and really develop quickly.
Yeah. I agree with that. Question number 3, you've touched on it a little bit, Malcolm, but how have you approached security?
Okay, so from a security perspective of all of our little instances and environments that we're running, we're tending to keep them all in their own little cohesive environment, all sitting behind the Alibaba firewall in their own security group. We find it's a lot simpler than trying to make use of combined pieces of infrastructure, even though the overall platform might be the same. It's all ECS, but where we have a requirement to keep items separate, that's the easiest way for us to do it. We've got Alibaba has a access manager, and where we've needed to, we can create some access accounts with the private keys.
Yeah.
And that's been helpful for us in moving data in and out of the platform as well.
Great. So question number 4, what has been the most impressive thing about working with Alibaba Cloud? Good question.
Obviously the quality of their sales reps is a bonus. But no, look, I know I touched on this during my presentation. I think the thing that has impressed me most about Alibaba is the let's get on with it attitude, and let's just go out and work on the opportunities in the business.
Yeah.
I found that they've been Alibaba's been really flexible and really accommodating in terms of giving us what we need to be successful, and there hasn't been too much preciousness that occasionally we tend to see from global vendors. So I think that's probably the big thing from my point of view is the willingness to just chip in and support when we needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. So I think where we've come from, we've started small. We're now working up to more complex solutions. It hasn't been perfect, but I think both organisations have taken the initiative, and I think we've, as you said, we both chipped in to get to where we are today, which is great. Question number 5. Hello, could you please explain how to use Alibaba Cloud Compute Services? It's a little bit vague, but I mean at a high level, if you'd like to know more about using Alibaba Compute Services, just contact sales and we'll have a technical rep get you started, create an account, and we'll take you through the whole thing. Question number 6, what is the requirement for you to go to market with Alibaba Cloud? I guess I'll answer that. So, I mean, we have a certification program. In order to be a partner of Alibaba, you need a minimum number of certifications. Obviously, Malcolm being an MVP has passed that requirement. But at a higher level, I mean, a level of commitment to go to market together. And I think Amidata is a great example where they've taken the initiative to bring together disparate products, to create a service, to make things simple for our customers. It's probably a high level requirement for us to go to market. And as these guys have mentioned, we basically dedicate teams to organisations that take initiatives to build things on Alibaba Cloud. So I mean, at the first instance, it'll become being certified. with Alibaba Cloud, but from then building a sound business plan and both organisations investing together to go to market. Last question. So good question. What areas do you think Alibaba Cloud can improve?
Yeah, that is a good question. So I think one of the things we've probably provided input as we've gone along in terms of areas to improve, and one of the things that's also been quite good is where we've said, well, look, here's an area, and I'll give an example. So with our backup as a service offering, we found that the granularity of the bucket sizes was too big, or there was a too big a jump from one bucket to the next, which really didn't help keep in line with the way we grow our business. So we basically did some work with some of the technical folk in Melbourne, and we've been able to get to a point now where we can have the granularity of a bucket that meets our requirements. So what we've probably found is that if there's an area such as how a product's packaged, if it's not too onerous, there's certainly an appetite within Alibaba to go, well, hey, look, that's a good point. You shouldn't need to jump from, say, a 10 terabyte container to a 50 terabyte container on an annual plan. That kind of is a pretty big step up. How about we do it this way? And that's been really good. Malcolm, is there?
Nothing specific. I just think they've already gone through such an improvement process. I mean, when I first started with the support guys, like I might get a response back the next day, or someone would ring me. I mean, now I'm getting emails from the team here in Australia. I mean, I got one last Sunday at 12:30 a.m.
Yep.
So, and that was I was looking for that answer, and it came through. I woke up Sunday, and there it was. I could keep going. So, compared to how we first started, it's just fantastic from a support perspective. And
I guess that's the thing. When we first started this journey, there was maybe one technical expert or technical resource in Melbourne. We now are up to at least 4 that I can think of off the top of my head in terms of people that we can talk to pretty much immediately if we have any technical questions, and that's just within a year. So I very much look at the Alibaba growth trajectory as one that, here's an organisation that's serious in the marketplace, wants to work with a bigger ecosystem to take solutions to the market and put in the resources to get there. So that's always one of the things when an organisation's coming into a mature market like Australia, for instance, that Australians can be a bit wary of vendors coming in, trying to just make a quick dollar and then move on. And we don't have that discomfort. The fact that they've gone from one data centre to a second data centre and plans for a third one, and just the investment around the region across Asia Pacific is just enormous. So we think the future with Alibaba is quite great.
Absolutely. So there's another question. Hello, can you please explain major point of differences apart from cost effectiveness as opposed to other cloud providers like Microsoft and AWS? I mean, I'm probably best fit to answer that.
Sure, go for it. I
mean, from a high level, when you look at the Alibaba ecosystem, we're here to enable businesses. So, I mean, there's plenty of infrastructure providers out there that are just as reliable, probably exactly or similar technology. When you look at the ecosystem, Alibaba culturally looks to enable organisations. So when you look at it from an ecosystem perspective, we consult with organisations, and I guess this partnership is a good example of that. We'll come in and invest time to enable and build bespoke solutions depending on your requirements. So I mean, when you look at kind of the top 4 public cloud providers, probably not much difference except a few price differentiations and a few different software differentiations. Alibaba is clear leaders in terms of, or in my opinion, retail solutions, what we call new retail, our big data and AI solutions, our brain technology, and what we call our ecosystem. So we found that organisations that are looking to grow their business, especially across ASEAN and APAC, find a lot of mileage with working with Alibaba as opposed to organisations that would just prefer you to run your core business systems on their infrastructure. So it's more of a partnership as opposed to a transaction. I mean, for small and mid-sized businesses, it's mainly around price, flexibility, and support. So, and what we're doing with Amidata is a great example of that, where we're flexible in our approach. So if there's some way that you want to consume a product, where we'll work with you regardless of your size. We're flexible with our support. So you have a local team, you've met the guy that supports your infrastructure, which is probably a key differentiation to some of the other vendors that almost have a gate before you even get embedded support with your infrastructure. So I mean that's that's kind of vague, but I mean, at a high level, that is our key differentiations at the moment in the market.
And one thing I'll just add to that is, and I touched on it before, is that Alibaba. When you mention Alibaba, everyone knows who Alibaba is, and cloud may be new, but the back end business in China is not.
Yep.
And what we find is that there is also, as a point of difference, as a service provider, when you talk about Alibaba Cloud, insofar as they are looking at, okay, well, if our business has got ambitions to try and work within the China market or try and do something within China,
yep,
they're really interested in looking at, well, how can we work with Alibaba and use that as a gateway into the China market, yep, whether or not it's to buy services or buy products or to sell services or sell products. They see that as very much an entry into that market. So that's also something that I think the broader market's interested in, outside of, what is your dollars per hour for compute.
Absolutely. And I mean, Alibaba Cloud underpins the whole ecosystem.
Correct.
So it's more of a strategic play as opposed to a pure infrastructure play. Yep. I agree. What is the high level in terms of price? I mean, that's pretty hard to answer. Across the board, we tend to be about 15 to 20% cheaper. But if you need a special price, give me a call. We'll sort it out. No worries. How many data centers do you have? We have 2 in Sydney at the moment, active. So if you need any further information around support, security, locations, NDA has to be signed, but we're happy to share all of that information with partners.